Niwern narik dien, waterang actanuk, Makburian waterang bagaruk, Monamaith mirabea, Nilinga waterang bake, Karingarapo bunja the eagle, Wa the crow, Kimbani ba Diane Gilson. Welcome to Waterang Country.
Live from Waterang Country, welcome to Lance TV. Coming to you from the palatial New Camp Street Studios in Ballarat, get ready to laugh, think, love and sparkle. And now, it's time to turn that camp dial all the way up to fabulous. Here's your host, the multi-award-winning Lance-tastic, Lance de Boyle.
Welcome to Lance TV. I'm Lance de Boyle, and we're coming to you live from Waterang Country, the land of Waterang people and the resting place of Bunjil the Eagle. Welcome to the show. If you watched the show before, welcome back, and if you haven't, strap yourself in. Get yourself a drink, make yourself comfortable, sit down. We have a wonderful show for you, like always. Come on, let's sit down. Oh, look, I'm coming to you live. Could I be any closer to you on your TV tonight? It's fantastic. Cheryl's on the floor tonight. Go on, give us a nod or something, Cheryl. Let everyone, yeah, there we go. Now, hope you washed your hands. Yeah, thankfully, because it's not on autofocus, we're just getting a blur of your finger. Just the one. Be hilarious. Anyway, back to you and back to me. I've got something wonderful to share with everyone tonight. I was meant to have a pre-show chat with tonight's guest at 5:30 yesterday, and I'd had a meeting at the Ballarat Mechanics Institute. Ran over time, and as I was leaving, I had artists going, "You have to go back upstairs, you have to see the installation, you've got to come and see, you've got to come and see." So I turned around, I forgot all about the guest, and went back up thinking, all right, I've got a little bit of time. I got really sidetracked in what was happening. It is amazing. We've got a little bit of footage that we'd like to show you, and we'll play that for you right now.
Welcome to a fortunate series of events. It's a space where you can actually view images larger than life, a place where an artist can actually explore doing animations with their artwork, present 3D artworks, interact with some musical instruments, visualizations that change with sound. Play with various string station instruments. Play on the percussion tree. And watch ever-evolving artwork being transformed on the screens.
So there you go, artwork by Zlatko and Melinda, Ballarat-based artist. When I spoke to Zlatko, we had a wonderful little strange chat in Croatian, which was hilarious because I haven't spoken Croatian forever, but remembered words. Zlatko is actually an engineer, not an artist. So it's interesting that somebody who is so highly skilled is using their powers for good and creating art. And of course, Melinda Muscat, who's been on the show a few years ago now, and has a shop, I think it's called the Imaginarium, just out the front of the Ballarat Mechanics Institute there. So Melinda had all these works that were shown as part of White Night, and I'm not sure if Zlatko also had work. But the Ballarat Mechanics Institute has gone and put an installation in of what was shown on the White Night, and from memory I think it's going for about a month. So when you watch this back, pause on Facebook and get the phone number for the Ballarat Mechanics Institute, give them a ring and just find out when you can go and see it, because it really is, it's something. There's a whole bunch of kids' balls that you can squish, and more music is made. So that's why I missed, why I was late for the pre-show chat with our special guest tonight, who is now waiting in the wings. They were going to be in studio, but they have fallen ill to the dreaded lurgy, the lung pox that it is. But without further ado, please put your hands together for the one, the only, Dr. Catherine Barrett. Darling, how are you?
Thanks, Lance. Thank you. What a beautiful art installation. How gorgeous.
It was crazy. There was kind of, you'd look, and even it was even on the roof, there was projections in reaction to the music that was being made.
And it's such a beautiful building. The Mechanics Institute is gorgeous. But I love that art that you can walk into and become part of. Beautiful.
Amazing, amazing. Now, as I just said before bringing you on, you were going to be in studio tonight, but you've been flirting.
Flirting with coronavirus, unfortunately. I managed to avoid it for 4 years, but and I'm doing okay. I just spending a lot of time horizontal.
Oh, we all kind of wish for that, but not with COVID. Now, Dr. Catherine, we probably best know you in amongst a whole bunch of other things, but the kindness pandemic is probably your biggest kind of global badge, really, isn't it?
Yeah, look, I think so. And that was sort of an accidental project, but I think actually courageously having a go at many things is something that I value. Not everything works. But on the 14th of March 2020, when coronavirus was pushing us into lockdown, I set up a Facebook group called The Kindness Pandemic. And what I wanted to do was to get people to focus on looking out for each other, looking after each other, because I was quite anxious about what was happening. And on social media, there was a lot of, I don't know whether you remember, there were fights in supermarkets over toilet paper and checkout chicks with bruises up their arms being assaulted, trying to enforce the toilet paper limit. So I set up a group called the Kindness Pandemic, focused on acts of kindness for people who are doing it tough during the COVID-19 pandemic. And it became the fastest growing Facebook group in the world. It grew at a rate of 50,000 new members a day for a while to 580,000 new members in just under 2 weeks. And we said, right, let's make this something that people can set up anywhere they want. You know, we can have a Ballarat version and a Daylesford version and a New York version. And so within another week, 70 went up around the world. And Amazing. We were then voted the most uplifting Facebook group in the world by Facebook.
Congratulations on that. We'll talk more about that later, though. I just kind of wanted to allow people to have a bit of an introduction to who you are as a wonderful human being. We're glad that you enjoyed the 2 minutes of art. We now have another segment, which is called the Lance TV Artists Corner. And tonight, our very special artist, it's a pre-record made by Dr. Sophie. Our very special artist is Ballarat's own Marty MonStar. We will see you after this and after the break.
My name is Marty MonStar. I'm a playwright, poet and producer. I spent my career in business as an accountant or a business advisor, and then I retired at 38. And then I went to art school for 3 years. Art school, it was pretty generic. It was naturally there was painting. I enjoyed black and white photography, sculpture, and just a theory of art. And when I completed that course, I went and did 2 years of psychology online, and I realised, hey, I don't want to go that path. So my wife at the time mentioned why don't I try my hand at poetry? And that was in 2016. And I've released 2 books of poetry. I cut my teeth in the Melbourne poetry scene. And I had 12 features over that time in Melbourne with the poetry scene. And then because I was writing short to long-term stories, that gave me a chance to write my first script. And I had that production on in 2019 at Wamama Courthouse. And from there, I'm up to my 12th play. So it's a film noir for the stage play film noir style. It's set in 1922 in Melbourne. The protagonist is a strong, independent female. She is a private detective. Her office is in Flinders Lane. And Joan Archer, her name is. She's a heavy drinker, chain smoker, and her weapons of choice are her vicious tongue and her gold revolver. And she's not afraid to use both. The style of writing is very much Raymond Chandler. And for those who don't know about Raymond Chandler, he was responsible for writing the stories of The Big Sleep, Maltese Falcon, and all that style in the 1940s of that film noir. But generally, I've written comedic style plays, and I've been compared to David Williamson and Alan Hopwood, who has passed, but he wrote The Big Men Rise, I think it was called, about football and things like that. So very colloquially Australian, very colloquially comedic in Melbourne-based plays. And the last year I sold out all my productions I had on. I had Sean at La Mama Theatre in Carlton. I had Sean at the MC Showroom in Parang. And the last one was a fundraising event at the Q Courthouse. So I basically sold out for all my productions. And I do have a following. I'm quirky and also very colloquially comedic. And and I draw a lot on film. Tarantino's work inspires me in the style in which I write, and the narrative, and also the presence on stage and the dynamic and that sort of thing. Last year I had 5 productions on in Melbourne. Probably my favourite was called The Wrong Horse. It was set in Melbourne. It was about 2 small-time cribs that didn't have high IQs, and they kept making mistake after mistake. And it was more comedic slapstick style of performance and comedy. I've always written comedy, but for the last 3 plays I've written have always had women as the protagonists. And also my creative team that I pull around me for productions are all women. And I encourage people to write, tell a story, express the way they feel. And I don't think we do have challenges. My statement might appear to be broad in the fact that we are limited by constraints financially, but emotionally and creatively we are not constrained. The only person who constrains ourselves is us. And I believe we can achieve anything we want to creatively within the boundaries of money, etc. But I embrace that, and that's what I encourage people at Ballarat Spoken Word. If you have a poem or a story or something personal to share, please share it.
There you go. Welcome, hello everybody on Facebook watching us. Dr. Catherine, what did you think of Marty's most beautiful balloon necklace?
Marty strikes me as an incredibly creative person, and that's one of the reasons that I talk about celebrate aging, is because what I hear Marty saying is, the only restriction, the only limitation is your own imagination. I think Marty sounds awesome.
Yeah, I think we had Marty on the show last year, and he was talking about the wrong horse at that point in time, and also in that bit of footage too, Marty was also saying that he's looking for some funding if anyone's wanting to burn off some dollars before the end of financial year. If you go to Lance TV Ballarat Facebook, in the thread for this broadcast, you'll see that Dr. Sophie's posted in there. There's a link. So if you're keen to support the arts, this is a chance to maybe support Marty. Have you been much involved in theatre, Dr. Catherine?
In arts or art, but not theatre so much. Mind you, I worked as a nurse for a long time, and I think there's definitely a performance aspect of that. Yeah,
because I suppose it depends on what you mean by kind of how one creates art as well, because there's so many different forms of it.
Yeah, and I think most of us are artists, but I think we get taught to sort of hold back on it, and I'm quite interested in the fact that when people go through major life changes like dementia or psychosis or major life changes, and if they allow themselves to be unrestrained, they can discover art. And I think that's fascinating, because I guess it's there in all of us, but we don't allow ourselves too often.
Well, yeah, it's I think for a lot of people that the creative streak's kind of beaten out of them. What was that John Lennon song, Working Class Hero? As soon as you're born, they make you feel small, and kind of just get out there and start making the money. Welcome back. You're watching Lance TV. I am Lance de Boyle, and I'm here with my very special guest, Dr. Catherine Barrett. There you are.
Hello.
Look at you. Now, Dr. Catherine, we are in the interview phase of the show. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
That sounds like consent to me. Let's go. Now, Dr. Catherine, we've been doing this show 7 years, and I always love to tell everyone that. For 7 years, our first question has always been, where were you born?
I was born in Ballarat at St John of God Hospital in Ballarat. Yeah, so Ballarat's my hometown. It's where I grew up most of my life. And where my parents were up until a couple of years ago.
Amazing. Now, when we spoke last night, you were saying it was during primary school that you discovered social justice. Do you want to tell us that story?
Yeah, well, I think my mother had a real passion for social justice, and I remembered in primary school, the most popular kid in class had invited everyone in the class to her birthday party, and she was from quite a wealthy family, and so we knew the food would be good and everyone was very excited. But I was aware also too that everyone had been invited except one kid in the class who was from a fairly tough background, didn't have a lot of money, didn't have school uniform, didn't have, showers. And this was a kid that was really ostracised, and she was the only person who wasn't invited. When I told my mother, she said I could go, and she asked if everyone had been invited, and I said, well, no, except this one particular person. And Mum said, well, you can't go if she can't go. And I remember feeling quite devastated. at that moment. And then when I had to go back and tell the birthday girl that I wasn't allowed to go if this other girl wasn't allowed to go, and the feedback was pretty brutal. But actually what the feedback did, because the feedback was really callous, I think I then got my mother's point that it actually wasn't fair and reasonable to exclude just one person on the basis of the fact that she was from a different socioeconomic group and from a challenged family. And that's when it stuck for me. And then, in my family there were a number of injustices, and it really drove a passion for me for social justice that I think's got more intense as I have gotten older. I've spoken to some people who say, it's great in your older years, you mellow out, and I think I'm just getting fired up, actually. The sense.
Listen to you go.
One of the lovely things about ageing as a woman is that, I was taught, like so many other good Catholic girls, that we sort of made ourselves small. We didn't take, and that's what I experienced, this sense of, you be small in the world, and that's what women and girls do. And it's kind of like the older I get, the more space I'm taking up, and I'm just going, I know who I am, I know what I want, and I'm going out to get it. And I could never have done that in my 30s or 40s, but 50s and 60s, watch out.
Look out. You'd make Simone de Beauvoir very proud, no doubt. No. Dr. Catherine, you've mentioned that you grew up in Ballarat, but you also grew up at a time in Ballarat where it wasn't okay to be gay. Do you want to talk to us about that a little bit?
Yeah, well, I think for me, looking back, I see photos of myself as a kid and a teenager and in my 20s, and I just think, you poor little queer kid. But, I didn't come out until I was in my 50s, actually. And I think it wouldn't have been that way if I'd have grown up around queer culture or queerness being something that was an option that you could live through. I remember in primary school, the hairdresser in Ballarat being beaten up and was in intensive care. And so I knew that being queer was something that could get you into big trouble. And in fact, my sister, who's very straight and very wonderful, went out drinking one night, and she and her girlfriend were walking down the street arm in arm, as sometimes cis women do when you're sort of having fun and horsing around, and someone thought they were lesbians, and she and her friend were beaten up. And so I knew that this was not something that was, that was okay in other people's eyes. And so it was not a conscious decision to repress it. It was just something that happened really very automatically or subconsciously. And it wasn't until I think when I was 50 that something shifted. Maybe it was menopause, and I decided that I had to really acknowledge this part of me that had always been there. And one of the most difficult experiences was going home to tell mum and dad, and telling my dad, I couldn't get the words right, and telling my dad, I don't like men. And that was the wrong thing to say, because my dad said, well, I'm a man. And I said, well, actually what I mean is I'm a lesbian. And they didn't mind at all. They just said, well, we just want you to be happy. And my mum used to, practice saying LGBTI and used to rehearse it in front of me, which is rather gorgeous. And they both voted yes for marriage equality. So I'm forever grateful for that little rainbow that ran through Ballarat for me.
Amazing. The other punchline in all of that too was that you were saying that in Ballarat, like you grew up, you were a nerdy child, and you always felt like a bit of an outsider.
Yeah, look, I did, and I hear that from lots of people, and sometimes I wonder whether we all felt like we were on the outside and no one was on the inside. But certainly, you know, I was a daggy kid. I don't ever recall being a popular kid, but I think that one of the things that I have learned over time and as I've aged, and particularly as a woman, that there is empowerment in the margins if we look for it. And I think that particularly with the work that I'm doing now, those early messages of feeling a bit different, feeling on the outside and having to make my own way through and value myself, which is something I still have to work on. But what I've learned is that being on the margins or being on the outside is an incredibly powerful place to be if we understand where it is and value ourselves. And that's my life work in a lot of ways, having to understand who I am and value who I am and realise that in the margins, there are no rules. I can do whatever I want and be whoever I want to be. And so that's been a great liberation for me as a human being. But in the work that I do now, which is very in the margins as well, I can be incredibly creative because it's not that kind of mainstream, got government funding sort of locked in. It's kind of like people approach us and just go, this is this terrible thing that we're experiencing as an older person, and we go, how can we help? Let's work together on this. You know, that's what you can do when you're in the margins. And so I've really learned to value it and celebrate it and recognise it for the empowerment possibilities, I guess.
Amazing, absolutely amazing. Dr. Catherine, we do need to go for another break. When we come back, we will have some more of the lovely Dr. Catherine Barrett right after this. We're back on Facebook, Dr. Catherine, and what's been exciting, as you've been talking, your ring light is just dancing all over your glasses. It's hilarious. You watch it back later and you'll go, oh.
You don't know how hard I had to work to make that happen.
It's amazing, and it's like colour theory with your glasses too, because the ring light comes up occasionally as like this really amazing kind of fluorescent lime green against your red glasses. It's like, oh, that's a bit nice. Jen McInerney's in the thread, Melissa Williams and Kim Waller are all watching. John Siemens is watching. I don't know if you know John. Bronwyn Blaylock is in the thread. Hello, Bronwyn. Connor Overton Shaw, hello darling, you'll be on the show a little bit later in the year. If you've got any comments or anything that you would like to share with Dr. Catherine through the interview as well, drop it in the thread. If you're watching us on Facebook, make sure that you head over to the Lance TV Ballarat Facebook page and you'll find the live feed. And you can just leave us a little message in there and I'll be sure to read it out on your behalf. Won't that be exciting? You're just looking forward to that now, aren't you, Dr. Catherine? I can see it.
I am. I hope Melissa says something. I work with Melissa. So great that people are watching.
Fantastic. Well, it's helpful. It'll be a lonely show otherwise. No. Fantastic. Yeah, so drop it in the thread if you've got something that you would like to say. Your life is actually quite interesting, and as you were just speaking, particularly that last bit, it all flashed back to me that you were originally on the show in 2020, courtesy of Joe Bangles.
Was it? What was I talking about? Joe Bangles is amazing.
Yeah, Joe had done a series of like these 5-minute pieces, so 22 episodes of it, and Joe picked to do interviews with regional people doing amazing things, and you were one of those people. I vividly remember I think you were talking about the work you were doing. Welcome back, Channel 31. You're watching Lance TV. I'm Lance, looking at you, looking at Dr. Catherine. There we go. Hey, there we go. Let's do it again. That's hilarious. Now, we've been calling you Dr. Catherine this evening because I love calling you Dr. Catherine. Now, and you're not a medical doctor, but you actually hold a PhD. Your thesis was on improving the quality of healthcare for patients. You've got a nursing background too, don't you?
I do. I did my nursing training at St John of God in Ballarat, the hospital I was born in. And shortly after that, discovered my passion for working with older people. And so that's been my professional life journey, is working with older people. I think older people are the most interesting cohort on the planet. Little known fact.
You lie. You lie.
No. I think it's true, actually. I think older people are greatly undervalued. And in actual fact, I think we get more interesting as we get older. And it's not that young people aren't interesting. I mean, the beautiful artists that you had on before, who talked about starting life in business and then going across to the arts and then doing psychology and then doing writing. And I think that's the lovely thing that happens as we age. We accumulate experience, we go exploring, and I think that makes us more interesting people. So I think, honestly, I think that's one of the only things that I don't really look forward to about being old is I imagine that when I'm old, there'll be not many people who are older than me, and that's unfortunate because I love older people.
And they love you as well. Speaking of older people, though, you actually went back to university to complete your PhD as a mature age student. How was that experience for you?
Oh, it was so much fun. I absolutely loved it. I did my PhD at the University of Melbourne, and I just, all the way through school, I'd sort of failed everything, particularly if it was an exam. But I don't think I was really interested as well. But then by the time I got to university, I just thought, this is fantastic. And hanging out in the library and having a thought and then going off and researching it, and sort of that sort of great unpacking and unpicking. I love that stuff. And I think as a mature age student, I might have been 40, but sort of taking sort of what I'd known and learned over the course of my life intuitively and pulling theoretical frameworks into it, I found that absolutely fascinating. And I decided that I wanted to be a student all my life and then an academic all my life. And that didn't work out. But what it did was it gave me a taste of, like the artists that you were talking about before, that sort of being in at different points of our life, having different experiences. And then who I am today is kind of a collection of all of those experiences. My work nursing, and then working in aged care, and then as a student, and then an academic. And now this work that I'm doing now is really accumulation of all of those things. It's about caring and it's about research, but more than anything else, it's about art as well too. And it's about story, and it's about making culture change happen. And I couldn't have done that work in my 20s or 30s. So academia was an incredibly important part of that.
Amazing. You did your PhD. You went off to do your first project, which was My People. But then after that, you went down the road of looking at dementia. Sophie, can we bring up the photo of the beautiful Anne and Edie? We haven't got Mr. Velvet Ears there as well. Do you want to just talk a little bit about your work with Anne and Edie?
Yeah, sure. So I had the great privilege of meeting Anne and Edie on a research project that I was working on that was looking at LGBTI people's experiences of dementia, and that was one of the first research projects in Australia. And I met Anne and Edie, and Edie kind of pretty much said to me that she wanted to not just share her story through spoken word. She wanted me to take some photographs, and then we did a sort of clunky, clumsy little homemade film. And then Anne and Edie are, beautiful, beautiful human beings, and incredibly powerful insights into the experience of living with dementia, Edie's experience of younger onset dementia. And so we sort of came up with this idea of, why don't we document Anne and Edie's journey as a way of helping other people to understand the experience, the human experience of living with dementia? Because so often we dehumanise people living with dementia. And also too, there's not, at that time and still now, there's not been a lot of work understanding the experiences of queer people or rainbow people living with dementia. So I think in the finish, we made 4 films over about 8 years. And the last one, as you said, was after Edie had died. And it was when Edie went into a residential aged care home, and the story was told through the eyes of Mr. Valverdier's, who was Edie's dementia assistance dog. An incredibly powerful film. And Edie died, I think, a year or so after that. But, incredibly courageous thing for Anne and Edie to do, to document their lives in such a very personal way, to educate other people. And, incredibly. And I think, and Anne was Ballarat Senior of the Year and Victorian Senior of the Year for all those reasons and more.
Absolutely. It was 2023, I think. Maybe, I could be wrong. And Anne's still going strong. She's got a van. She's doing a bit of a van life thing, and I think she's currently in New South Wales. She's off just exploring the world, and Anne's actually said to me after Edie's passing, it was something like, I'll never have another partner, because why would you go with a Toyota after you've had a Rolls Royce? And it was just such a really beautiful testament of love that was between them. And Anne will be back in Ballarat at some point. She may even be watching the show at some point as well. But we do need to go for another short break. Is that all right with you, Dr. Catherine?
That's fine.
Fantastic. We go for the short break, and we'll be back right after this. We had to skip over a few things because I wanted to talk about the Gen K intergenerational kindness, but we've got a couple of minutes now if you wanted to talk about that with our Facebook friends.
Yeah, sure. So that's our work. Gen K is kind of a follow-on from the kindness pandemic, and we're interested in how we can take this focus on acts of kindness and this work that we need to do combating ageism, how we can pull the two of them together. So Gen K is generational kindness and bringing older and younger people together to understand ageism, value each other, and then work together on an act of kindness for someone doing it tough in the local community. So we did those workshops at the end of last year with some funding from the Victorian government, and they were, we called it Queer Christmas. And so we came together to look at how we could support queer people doing it tough at Christmas, and particularly people who may feel isolated at Christmas or, feel really disconnected from their families and feel that pressure. So we made some hope cards, some messages of hope for queer community members at Christmas. And it was an incredibly beautiful, powerful, intergenerational project. And I think one of the things that the participants really loved about it was the intergenerational aspect of it. And when I say intergenerational, I'm not talking about kids. I'm talking about people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s and 70s. And they said, we don't get many chances to come together across the generations in our communities. And that was something that people valued enormously. And, fascinating insights into ageism as well. Talking about ageism in queer communities was very eye-opening.
Yeah, and it is quite amazing. I remember there was a movie called Bliss, and I think it was Peter Carey, I can't think, but there's a line in it. It was kind of like an old folks' home, and they were referring to it as the dumping ground of human waste. And it's like, and I think in Australia we do view age with that light. You look at Mediterranean and Asian countries, and that their elders are really very much part of the family unit. We tend to
Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Back Channel 31. You're watching Lance TV. I am Lance de Boyle, looking at you on the big screen with Dr. Catherine. I would like to now talk about, you've got a more current project at work, and that is called the Rainbow Care Cards. This is kind of, again, it's you're looking at working with our elders. Talk to us about the care cards.
Well, it's this idea that older people are largely invisible in services. And I think when a lot of people think about rainbow or queer people, they think about young people. And service providers who are providing services to older LGBTI people don't necessarily understand, or to older people don't necessarily understand that they have queer clients or patients. And then when you talk to older queer folk, they're saying to us, well, we don't necessarily feel safe to disclose in services, and the service providers are going, well, we don't have any queer older people. So this idea of rainbow care cards was, I came in as an independent third party and was talking to older LGBTI people about their experiences of services, de-identifying those experiences, and then emailing or sending letters to the service providers saying, hey, you've got a rainbow care card from an older LGBTI person who's used your service, and this is what they would like to tell you about this.
You've lost her. Sorry. We tried to bring up one of those care cards, but we lost the audio all of a sudden. Sorry, Catherine. You were right in the middle of a sentence at the time.
That's okay. The cards are incredibly powerful. We've set up a web page for them because we want to share them with other service providers. But the card you put up there was from an older LGBTI person who got very sick very quickly and had to call an ambulance and was so scared about their health declining, but also too about the ambulance knowing that they were a queer person and what was going to happen to them. And the ambulance arrived and the ambo, God love them, had a rainbow pin. And this older person talked about how suddenly all those fears just melted away. I'm not going to be set upon, I'm not going to get chucked out of the ambulance, and I don't have to worry about that aspect of protecting myself. I just have to worry about my healing and recovering from this health incident. And so we wrote that on a rainbow care card and we sent it off to Ambulance Victoria, to the CEO, who wrote back the most beautiful response, just saying, Catherine, please thank this older LGBTI person, and their vulnerability is really clear from the card and helps me to understand the importance of inclusivity. And, we just really need to keep this work going. And I've shared this with the board and with our regional managers and the exec team. And so you can see how this process works. We've given that feedback to Ambulance Victoria so they understand that they may not be able to do a head count of older LGBTI people that they've picked up in an ambulance, but that doesn't mean they don't have any older LGBTI people, and it doesn't mean that LGBTI inclusivity doesn't matter. It absolutely does matter, and here's an example of it. So it's been an incredibly powerful project, and I'd like to see that one being picked up all the way around the country to sort of create this visibility around older LGBTI people and the need for inclusivity in services for them.
Absolutely. And you're right, like when we think rainbow people, we think Mardi Gras and like all the young ones getting out expressing, and, you know, for some reason, like, you get old and you just stop being a member of the community. Like, you disappear, you fade away, and that's quite heartbreaking when I kind of think of it in that way. I'm really curious though, like, you have built a career out of finding creative ways to make a statement, like peaceful, calm, loving ways to get messages across. How do these things come to you, like the rainbow care cards? I mean, how did that come to you?
I think for me, you know, it's a coming out story, actually. I think coming out for me was, you know, my whole world fell apart, my marriage fell apart, everything fell apart. And I did a lot of work on repairing, but the thing about falling apart is there was nothing to lose in terms of creativity. And I became so much more creative and authentic through that process because I had nothing to lose. And so I was able to take that through my own art practice, but also to my work. And, you know, this work combating ageism and building respect for older people is no easy task. And so how do we engage the community in this? It's got to be art and narrative-based approaches. And so it's not a brochure. I can't pass you a brochure that says, be respectful for older people. No one will listen. But we've got a project at the moment that is called Old is Beautiful, and it's portraits of older people and their messages about what makes them beautiful or what beautiful means to them. And this is about each and every one of us embracing our own ageing and just going, well, I've got wrinkles and blemishes and grey hair and, you know, my cheeks are dropping, but I am still beautiful. And so it's in that embracing of that and these portraits that show that people want to step up and go, what is that? What is that message? What is that image all about? And so that creative process makes the revolution happen, but it's also too about me just being authentic because I fell apart, and that's what I saw when I fell apart, this creativity that's really quite beautiful.
Amazing.
And I'm completely sober.
Thank goodness for creativity and sobriety. No, and not necessarily in that order. Dr. Catherine, you have been a wonderful breath of fresh air on our show. And for that, we would like to thank you by giving you a few things as I duck down here. This wonderful Tiny Pride little bag.
Beautiful.
That's for you. There is, sorry for reaching down like this, everything fell over. The Ballarat Pride Month program, there's things on up until the end of next week, I think.
Fantastic.
There's been, City Ballarat, it's the first time they've done it. There's been
month long.
There's been 50, or there are 50 events.
So good.
It is amazing. Says Lothian has done an amazing work. Says is our LGBTIQA plus advisory person at council, and they have consulted with community, did a bit of a soft launch last year of 6 events, and now have come back with City Ballarat going, yes, we support LGBTIQA plus communities, and we're going to do a Pride Month, which is fantastic. So you'll get that.
Good.
And you'll also get this photo of me in a frame that says, I was on Let's TV.
I love that. Thank you.
Cheryl,
thank you so much.
Cheryl, who's our floor person, camera operator, and Cheryl actually has an exhibition. Is that your first exhibition? Is that your first exhibition? Cheryl goes, yeah. Cheryl just came up. Thank you so much, but don't go away because we've just got another ad break to do, and then when we come back we will be in the throes of the show. If you've tuned in for Bent TV, Stick around, we've got a little bit more Lance TV first, and we'll talk with Dr. Catherine a little bit more right after this. And if you would like to learn more about Dr. Catherine Barrett and her projects, head over to the website www.celebrateaging.com. Lance TV will be back right after this series of short messages. There we go, we're on Facebook now. Melissa Williams has asked, ask Catherine to tell you about how Chris Anderson, founder of TED Talks, is her #1 fan. Let's talk about Mr. TED Talks. What's that?
Oh, he's such a beautiful man, Chris. And so he wrote a book called Infectious Generosity, and I was interviewed for that book, and he did a podcast. And it was such a buzz because he's a beautiful man, but also too because he interviewed Bill Gates one week and interviewed me the next. I was absolutely thrilled. But if you listen to that podcast, it's conversations about the kindness work that we do. And Chris is really a beautiful man who is also a very powerful man who is using his power to try and change the world. And I could have spoken to him all day, really. So, but if you look at Infectious Generosity, if you look that up, he's offering free copies of the book as well too, so you can get a copy of the book for free.
Oh, nothing like a free book, and especially when that's a good one.
Yes, I mean, it's absolutely fascinating. His point is that everybody's talking about the evils of social media, and he says we are at a turning point in the world, and we can grab a hold of this and use social media for good to actually multiply and amplify things that are good. And one of them was the kindness pandemic work that we did. And I believe that as well too. I think so many people I know want to change the world or want to live in a better world, but think it's not up to them to create that change. And I think we are all leaders and we all have capacity to change the world, even in the smallest way. And if everybody does it, it's a revolution.
Absolutely. And Lance TV started on Facebook.
Look at the work you do. The work you do is incredibly important, Lance. And I think, believing that you can do something that makes a difference is a really important start.
Yeah, well, the first 6 months was like, isn't this funny? And then suddenly one day I realised that we were documenting. Welcome back, you're watching Lance TV, and it's time for All Over the Shop. Tomorrow is the Rainbow Coffee Portraits exhibition. That is going to be amazing. That's at Sebastopol Library from 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. Rainbow Coffee Portraits. The Winter Solstice gathering is happening over at the Merboo Recreation Reserve tomorrow at about 4:15. And tomorrow also, except this time from 6 o'clock, comedian Kirsty Webeck. I'll be the judge of that. That'll be on at 111 Main Road, Hepburn Springs. The 23rd, which is Sunday from 1 till 4, is the Queer Drop-In Drawing Workshop with the ever-lovely Lily Mae Martin, and that's at the Art Gallery of Ballarat. On the 6th of July, Enlighten His Holiness the Dalai Lama's birthday 2024. That's happening at Myers Flat, just the other side of Bendigo. On the 6th of July also is Ballarat Spoken Word with featured artist Evelyn Hartog, and that's at the wonderful TBH Studios. On the 7th of July in Melbourne, they're remembering Bruce Mackenzie, a wonderful human being who was the barman at DT's for such a very long time. Good old Darwin boy. On the 13th of July, the NAIDOC Week celebration at the National Gallery of Victoria in the Ian Potter Centre. It's the 13th of July from 11 till 4. On the 21st of July is Black and Bold, Pride on the Green, and that's brought to you by Your Community Health and Transgender Victoria, and that starts at midday. Zine-Valley, the Zine Fair 2024 at Inverleigh. That's on the Saturday the 27th of July, and that starts at 10, goes to about 2 o'clock. It's the 30th year anniversary celebration for Bella. That's on the 17th of August, again at 111 Main Road, Hepburn Springs. The 24th of August, the Words in Winter Gala Ball with the very wonderful Bruce Pascoe at 111 Main Road, Hepburn Springs. Monique Brumby is on Saturday the 14th of September at the Brunswick Ballroom. That starts at 6:30 and it is a retrospective of Mon's work. 9th of November, it's a Saturday, it's Carnival Day in the Queen's Gardens down there at Shepparton for Out in the Open Festival. We love it over there. Hello to everybody watching us from Shepparton. And hello to everybody who's watching us right across Australia and particularly right across Victoria. If you live in a Melbourne suburb, why not come out and visit somebody out in a regional area? We do the all over the shop just so you go, you know what, that would be a good place. Let's go to Merbau or let's go to Ballarat or Shepparton. There's always something on happening out here. There's a lot of queer community, LGBTIQA+, rainbow flying people. You know, we invite you to come up and visit us. We'd love that. Would you live in a regional area too, don't you, Dr. Catherine?
Yes, I hate to sound like a cliche, but Dalesford.
You do sound like a cliche. We've all done our turn in Dalesford one way or the other.
Yeah, I think the lovely thing about growing up in the country, I still feel that sense of knowing the importance of communities is what I got from growing up in Ballarat. And what's really lovely to see is having a month-long Pride Festival. And I think sometimes people in the country are more creative, less resources, more creative. So beautiful, fun events you had up.
Yeah, I agree. I think that regionally that community tends to be more mixed. Whereas in Melbourne, it's like the boys can go there and the girls can go there and everyone can kind of go to their own little corner. But regionally, it's everyone's kind of in it together, really, aren't they?
Yeah, which is the silver lining, really. I mean, talking about intergenerational work here and people saying, we don't get a chance to mix and meet each other. But I think what I know of what happens in Ballarat is that you've got old and young and every age in between gathering, and that's fantastic.
Amazing.
That's what it's all about.
Dr. Catherine, we've only got a few minutes left. We've mentioned it at the top of the show, we've mentioned it in the interview, but the kindness pandemic, which was, you got an award from Facebook. Talk to us about that.
So that was, we were awarded the most uplifting Facebook group in the world there were, I think, 13,000 finalists. So that was pretty amazing. I think, and it was really interesting to think about what made it such an uplifting group. And we did a survey in our group and 2,500 people filled it out and we said, what is it about this? People said it improves our well-being, and people said it feels like there's no us and them, there's only us. And it feels like we've got each other's back. That's what people want from the group. And I think fundamentally that's what most people are searching for, even though we can get distracted by, money and power. I think fundamentally people want human connection, to know that you've got my back and I've got yours. And that's what people find uplifting.
Amazing. And just over 500,000 people are a member of that group, right?
Yeah, there's still 530,000. I think a lot of people have left social media, but it still has really quite a presence. And, big shout out to Melissa Williams, who manages our social media accounts of over 500,000. Melissa's amazing. She can spot a scammer or a spammer at, a mile away. But it was a team effort. The kindness pandemic, a dozen volunteers that really made that happen at a time when people were joining at a rate so fast that the whole thing was jamming. And Facebook contacted us from California and said, "Do you guys need a hand? You look like you're having trouble." And we went, "Yes, thank you." Yeah, amazing. So I think
it's good to know that Facebook actually, when you need them, they turn up, because for the rest of us, Facebook are ghosts.
Yeah. So I think we can all be part of change, and most people don't realise that we all have the power to lead, and starting with a little something is all those little somethings combine, and we can create a better world.
Yeah, and it's coming from the right place internally as well. Dr. Catherine Barrett, you are an amazing human being. I'm getting the wind up. Thank you so much for making the time for us tonight. It's been such a pleasure shooting the breeze with you and getting to call you Dr. Catherine and you going, no, just Catherine. No.
Hey, thank you for the work you and your team do. I think you're amazing.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Really appreciate it. To everybody who's watching us at home, next week we have work experience people coming into the space, which we're all thrilled by, and we'll be working with a couple of young people in the studio for best part of next week, and they will be running the show. I can hardly wait. I hope you can't either. From me to you, thank you for joining us tonight. I've been Lance DeBoyle. That's been Dr. Catherine Barrett. And if you can be anything, be kind. See you next week.
Thanks for watching Lance TV. We'll be back same time next week. Lance TV is made possible through funding from the Community Broadcasting Foundation. I'm voiceover guy Randall Smith. See you next time.